All right. What's up, everybody? This is Don Ward, Third Creative, thirdcreative.com. We're going to take a minute to look at the newest template to hit thirdcreative.com, calling it Hazardous. And I came up with that name just kind of looking at these layers at the top, these striped layers that kind of remind me of like hazard lines. So anyways, let's take a look at some of the sample images. You can kind of see some of the color schemes, some of the different things that you can do. And then we'll jump into the template and I will walk you through the customization process from start to finish. We'll actually change it to a completely different color scheme and hopefully cover anything that might come up that that you need help with or that you're not sure how to do. Maybe also give you some ideas that you wouldn't think of otherwise. So let's take a quick look. This bundle, it's going to come with 6 files. So those 6 files would consist of a vertical 4x5, which the true dimensions are 16 by 20 at 300 dpi. You also get a 2x3, which is a 16 by 24. This 2x3 vertical comes with a panoramic, which is a 1x3 ratio. True dimensions is let's see, 8 by 24. We've got our 4 by 5 ratio, which is a 16 by 20 horizontal, which typically is used for your team, but as you'll see here in a minute, you can do some other things, get creative with it. You also get a 4 by 5 ratio for a memory mate. It has a dedicated file for that. And then we have our 2 by 3 ratio, horizontal. So you get those 6 files. Help you out. Let's take a look at a few more sample images just real quick. Just some different color schemes that I came up with. But we've got this football option here, which kind of went with an orange and kept the background dark. Made all these lower V's the same color. In this case, we went with the red, white, and blue theme. And I made the middle V that you can see here, blue, and kept the other 2 white. Got all the text on there. And then I went ahead and made one without any text, and I think that looks pretty cool. And I think there's some scenarios where you might want to just have a cool background and not have any text. Similar here, I do have text at the top with his name, but I could easily visualize this, scale him up just a little bit to cover a little more of the area and remove the name text at the top, and I think that looked pretty sweet. Next we have another basketball option. Went with this gold and black theme, and we've got our team, we've got a memory mate, and a vertical. I made samples for all 3 of those. Just kind of give you an idea of some different color schemes. Here's another something I'm still kind of working on, but this is an example of something where I put a player image on there. I added some effects. These lightning effects don't come with the template. There's some brushes out there that you can pick up. I think these were actually some from Joel Grimes that I used, along with some motion blur, but I went ahead and threw this in here just to kind of show you can throw an athlete on there, whether it's action or pose or whatever. And I personally think, that the background just by itself can look really cool with an athlete over it. So you can use it for your standard team and individual images where you're putting text graphics on there with the team name and the year or even player name or all the above, or you can just leave all of that out. I think it still looks really nice. So 3 more to look at real quick. We've got this bright aqua color that I used for this gymnastics image. Created one for cheer with just blue and white. And then I did this one for volleyball, and this one really pops. So I think we'll try to somewhat recreate this when we go through the template and explain how everything works. This will be the athlete that we use and the color scheme that we go for. Might turn out a little bit different. But with that said, let's jump right into it. So we're going to start off with the 2 by 3 ratio. Just keep in mind, I pick one to work with, but the same concepts work for the other files. And at the end, I'll show you how to use the memory mate, just in case it trips you up, but it's not much to it. It's really simple. But otherwise, as far as color customization, everything is consistent. So same thing will apply to any of the other files that you'd be using. So what I like to do is strip this down. I'm going to leave the subject image on. I'm going to turn off the text layers. And let's start off by dropping our athlete in here. So I've got that set up ready to go. So we've got that. Now I'm going to make her a smart object. And it's thinking about it. Alright. So I'm not going to get too meticulous with this. Well, that's nice. Anyways, I'm going to size her up generally, just so I can look at the uniform colors and see how it's coming together, and then at the end I can tweak her position and size a little bit more if I decide I want to. So let's jump into this very bottom folder, the background folder, and let's go all the way to the bottom. So right out of the gate, there's something that I need to explain to you depending on how you want to use your colors. We've got our texture. So if you look here, you've got this almost like pavement texture, I guess. I don't even know what you would call it, but it is desaturated and it's dark. And so when it's desaturated and it's dark, this layer folder above it, which is for these what look like hazard lines, thus the name Hazardous, the color that you select for it, you know, it just shows up exactly as the color that you choose. But in order for that texture to show through, you have to use either overlay or soft light. And when you do that and you mix a color underneath, then it starts to blend them. So for example, if I did, let me think, if I did a green background, then this red might start to take on a more like purplish tint or something like that. So if you're going to use this very far background with color, then we just want to change, kind of have to make a sacrifice. There may be a way around it. Maybe somebody watching this will know a trick that I don't, but you can come up here and change this to normal, and come up here to the actually go into the color overlay, change it to normal, and when you do that, you can change the color of the background to something that you want. Alright, now I need to bring the saturation up. Lightness. Bring the saturation way up. Anyways, you get the idea. But I think what we want to do for this is go with a dark. Let me just cancel that so I can start over. I'm going to go with a dark blue that kind of matches the shorts and this blue that's in this volleyball, kind of a navy. So let's go with a navy color. Bring the saturation up maybe about halfway-ish. Alright, maybe a little more. Alright, let's give that a shot. Okay, so we've got our background color set. Next step is to choose the color for these background diagonal lines. So it is set to red, and what I want is a neon green similar to what's in their uniform. So you will, I guess I'm going too quick here. You will want to click on this color overlay, open this up, click here, and this is where you will select the green that you want. So what I like to do is sample out of the uniform, but it's probably going to make it a little dark, a little more desaturated than I want. I'm gonna go pretty bright. It might be too bright. Let's bring the saturation up and the darkness down a little bit. I think right in there is looking pretty good. So let's roll with that. And again, you can always go back and change things. All right, so we've got our actual background changed to this navy. We've got our diagonal lines changed to this neon green. So next step, we have the V's. And when I say the V's, referring to these bottom 3 V's that you see here. Now, you can open this up, and I've got some highlight layers in here. So let's see which one that is. Okay, it's pretty subtle, but right here, and here, and here, and here, there are these highlight layers. You can turn them on, you can turn them off. They're somewhat desaturated and they're set to soft light, so you can play with them. If they're too bold, you can desaturate them a little bit. If they're not showing up enough, in your opinion, you can increase the saturation. But that's what those are. But otherwise, we've got our top V, which is white, and we've got our middle V, which is currently gray, and then we've got our lower V, which is a very dark gray. That was the original colors. And you can go in and control these all individually. You can make them all the same, and you can do all 3 different or any combination. So what I'm going to do is leave this top V as it is. I'm going to change this middle V. Now the color on these V's is controlled with a gradient overlay. So we want to click on this right here where it says gradient overlay, and this is currently the gradient that we have set. If you click in here, just in case you guys are not familiar with gradients, I have a ton of gradients saved that I reference. Anytime you make a gradient, if you hit this new, it'll throw it in here and you can access them later. It comes very handy. In fact, I've done that with the colors that I need here. But if you don't have one that you want to use, it's very simple. You'll click on this square here, click on this color sample box, and you can sample from your image, or you can just use this slider and pick pick your darker color or the one color that you want to transition from, and then you repeat the process over here. There's a lot more to gradients, but that's just the simple. So it's going to fade from dark to light. I have one saved, so I'm going to select it. So I have a dark navy to a light navy, and I'm going to use that for this. So we'll go ahead and hit OK. Now, you'll notice that there's a stroke outline, which is also controlled here. You can jump up to stroke outline. In this case, it's a little dark. I mean, you could leave it. There's some gray in her uniform. It would work, but just to demonstrate, same thing. You can pick another gradient. So if you want it to be a little brighter, that looks pretty cool. You can try making it this green, which might blend a little too much. I think I like the contrast of a brighter, whiter stroke. If you want, you can make that stroke thinner, thicker. We'll leave it at 49, but you can use this. All right, hit OK. So, little tip, if you want all of them to be the same, you will just right-click on the one that you have customized, copy the layer style, select the other one, right-click, and paste layer style, and boom. You don't have to go through that whole process all over again. But let's undo that, because I want them to be a little different. So I'm going to leave this white, but I'm going to change the the stroke on this, and let's just see what navy looks like. I like that. So we'll roll with that. So in this case, I do want to copy this layer style, and I'm going to come down to the bottom and I'm going to paste it. And so we have an alternating. We have white, we have blue, and we have white. So that is how you control the color for these lower V's. These are highlight layers. I have it red because you want to leave it alone. If you turn it off, you can see it kind of just flattens out the color. It's not super drastic, but definitely helps behind the player. This is a lower vignette, and so everything behind the player is darker. If you turn it off, you can see that it really brightens things up, and you know, that may be a look that you want. Maybe you want somewhere in between. So if you double click here, this is really just an exposure adjustment layer. You can bring the exposure up, or you can darken it. You can do whatever is going to work for what you're trying to create. So I'm going to actually leave it a little bright. Let's get out of that. This next one is a vignette, and so it's just kind of darkens the corners. If you turn it off, you can see. And it's the same concept. You can open it up, and in this case, you might want it a little lighter, a little less prominent. I'm going to actually get out of that. I'm going to undo it so it goes back to its original state, but that's what those layers are. Now we have a upper glowing V. Now there's another folder up high that has glowing V's, but they actually are the lower ones that go over the subject, and so I had to place this one further down in the layer column in the background so that it would be behind the player. And in some of the sample images I used it, in some of the sample images I left it off, so it's optional, as I put right here. In some cases it may look better without it, but we'll leave it on. It's a very simple color overlay, so if you just click here, you can set your color to whatever you like, and you can reposition it. You can move it up, move it down, if you choose to. So that's pretty much it for the background folder. Let's keep it moving, and let's see, player name text. We can go ahead and turn that on. This is very simple. It's got an inner shadow set up just to kind of give it some depth. First name, these are just regular text layers controlled with the color here. So if your first name, I think I want to leave that white, but the same concept applies to the last name. I'm going to change the last name color. If you come up here, so if you double click in your T here, it's highlighted, you'll get this. Otherwise you can come up here without doing that, as long as you have it selected. And so we're going to want to go with a green. So let's pick our green. Let's see. Yeah. Let's see, commit it. There we go. So now I can see that the player is up a little bit too high. So instead of making her smaller, I'm gonna use my arrow key with her selected. And we will bring it down and change the name. I'm sure most of you already know how to do that, but just double click on these T's. Okay, there we go. Now you can always play with the size. You can make the size larger, smaller. Space in between the letters you can increase, but more than likely you should be able to just leave it as it is. That's the player name text at the top. Very simple. This is where you drop your subject images. As you've already seen, it's got a drop shadow in there, so you can see it cast this shadow. You can adjust that if you want to. Darken lower subject. So in some cases you want this to be nice and dark. If it's too bright and you have text layers over it, it can make it a little muddy or distracting. But you may not always want this, so you can turn it off, or you can adjust it. So I think I want a little bit, but not a lot. So we'll bring it up and we'll close that out. And so that's another optional feature. All right, so the glowing V's that I was talking about, let's turn them on. So they were set to red. Now, you can control them independently, or you can do a blanket color overlay. So if you want both of them to be the same, you just use this. If you want them to be different, you'll open it up, turn this one off, and then control each one individually. But we're going to control them both the same. So I'm going to double click on color overlay. It's very simple. Click on your color box, and you want to select the color. So we'll sample from here. We're going to go with a neon green. That's kind of bright. Let's see, or light. I want a little more saturation. Yeah, that may be a little too bright. I don't want it to be too distracting. I don't know. I'm trying to remember what I did. I think somewhere in there looks good. We'll roll with that so we can keep this thing moving. All right, so now we have bars behind text, which is optional, and then we have our lower text layers. So I'll turn the lower text layers on, and as you can see, you can see your athlete behind here and everything. So this bars behind text, which is optional, you can turn it on, and it just kind of provides something back there to help your text stand out. So I have some images where I thought it looked better without it, and I had some where it clearly needed it. So that is up to you, but it's there if you do need it. So let's start by customizing the actual text, and then we can customize the layer behind it. So let's see. Let's go with team name here. I'm gonna double click. Well, no, don't forget your N. All right, so we've got that. It's a little too close to the edges, so it's set at 250. Let's just see what 230 looks like. I think that's better. And let's even it out a little bit. All right. So that's for our team name. Let's talk about how you would adjust the colors for the team name. We've got a stroke and we've got a gradient overlay. You probably want to leave the inner shadow and the drop shadow alone, but basically it's the same concept. You can change this using a gradient to anything. You can go with the green, you could go with the navy, you can go with the light white, which I think I will want to do. Change the inner color using a gradient. Let's just cancel to keep it what it was. And let's go with the stroke. Let's change the stroke. Let's see what green looks like. I think that's probably the way to go. Let's do the green. All right. Now up here, school name, it just has a drop shadow. Now it's not always going to be school name, but more often than not it will be. I moved it down a little bit, but in this case, this is a volleyball club, not a school. And she was a member of the 18s national team. For some reason the N on my keyboard does not like to cooperate. All right. Now you can play with the spacing. It is set to 300. Spacing between your letters here, and you can also change the size to your liking. So I'm gonna try 50, make it a little bit bigger, and that's pretty much it for that. Now below it we have the sport, and in this case I'm going to keep it sport, just change it to volleyball. And I didn't mention, but you can change the colors very easily up here, or by double clicking here and getting this box up here. In this case, I think it works best to leave it all white, except for the year that I have down here. Red doesn't work, so I'm going to change it to this bright green, maybe a little less bright. Some more in there. All right, so we're getting there. That's pretty much everything with the lower text layers. Let's look at this bars behind text. So you don't have to open this one up unless you want it to be wider. I've got it separated left and right. So you can use your arrow key left with this one. If you select the right, use your arrow key right. And you can widen it out. If you're going to scale it down a little bit, if for any reason you want to play with that, you can. But let's undo both of those adjustments. Let's see. Okay. Let's close it up. All right, so it's the same concept as the text. You've got a gradient overlay and you've got a stroke outline. So we're going to want to change this gradient because red clearly doesn't work. Let's see what this blue looks like. We're going to change the stroke as well. So we'll come up here to stroke. If it decides to cooperate, there it goes. Let's see. What does green look like? I think the only way we will know is to turn the text back on. Yeah, I like that. All right, so we've got our memory make. This is very simple. The customization works the same. But if we look at our layers over here, we have a folder here for insert team image, and then we have one for subject image. So let's turn that off, or let's just delete it altogether. And it's pretty self-explanatory, but you'll drop your subject image into this folder and position them however you need to. You know, all the customization for the colors in the background works exactly the same. But when you are making a memory map, you want to start with your 4x5 horizontal option to make your team image. And we'll go ahead and open that up because we're going to use it. So let me just get over there so I can show you what I'm referring to. We've got sample images. All right, this is the one we're looking for. All right. So let's say that you've already created your team image and you've saved it as a JPEG. So if you have it pulled up, you can just drag and drop it. Oh, I went with open. We'll do that. So you open it up. You can either, if you're not working within Photoshop, you can drag and drop, but if you went to File, Open, just open up your saved JPEG. I'm going to split our window here, and I'm just going to drag and drop it. Now, I don't think it's going to place itself where it needs to be, but that's okay. I'm going to convert it to Smart Object. There we go. Now, it went into the subject image because I didn't set that up beforehand, but you just drag and drop it there. Now, click on one of these, make sure you have your move tool, click on the corners, and all you have to do is just size it up and position it how you want it. So I'm thinking, move it up. Now the way he's positioned, I don't want him to cover up his teammate too much. A little overlap is okay. Maybe somewhere right in there. Bring it up. Anyways, it's completely by feel and what fits and works right for you. But the gist of it is that you just drop your team image into this folder. It already has the drop shadow to give it the depth, and then you just size it and position it how you like it. And that's all there is to it. So I think that covers everything. Hopefully Hopefully it does, but of course, if it doesn't, as always, shoot me a message. Don at thirdcreative.com. Hit me up on the Facebook page, whatever you need to do. But that is all for Hazardous and how to use it. And I hope you guys like it, and I hope, as always, that it makes you some cash. But until next time, that's all I got. See ya.